Want to know the secret to booking more speaking gigs, writing a bestseller, and filling your coaching or consulting practice with clients you love? Join best-selling author, writer, editor, and speaker Helana Black as she connects you with publishing and media experts who are ready to help you build the business of your dreams. You can find helpful show notes, publishing and book marketing resources, books, tutorials, and more at digitalwellpublisher.com.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Digital Well Publisher podcast. I'm your host, Helana Black, and I am here today to bring you another one of what I call my Inspirational Spotlight Interviews. Today I am talking with Ms. Tambra Raye. She is the founder of an organization called Wanda, and Wanda is short for Women Advancing Nutrition, Dietetics, and Agriculture. Now, generally in this podcast, I do interviews with people within the publishing industry and other experts who are able to share with you their expertise on how they can help you with publishing your book or somehow getting out your message through other means of writing, perhaps blogging, publicity, so on and so forth. But through my Inspirational Spotlight interviews, I choose them personally to interview because there's something within their story that you can put to use within your own career, within your own business, within your own life, and use that as inspiration for you to move forth with your message. And today's interview with Tambra is really just no exception. Tambra I've known her for a few years, and she's always been very excited about food, history, and heritage, particularly within the African diaspora. Tambra Raye, she lives in the Washington, D.C. area, and as I record this podcast right now, she is actually on her way to Nigeria, and she is doing a project there where she is setting up the final pieces of the production of a new children's book around the character of a little girl named Wanda, who is all about empowering little black girls with learning about food and nutrition and trying to reduce rates of diabetes and heart failure and all types of other diseases that are avoidable. We learn how to change our diets. And so she's very, very, very excited about this mission and this organization that she has created through herself and a whole lot of help from other people that she's been able to collaborate with. And so there's a couple of themes in this interview that I want to bring to your attention. Number one is that Tambra is all about women's empowerment. Now, I know for a lot of coaches and speakers and other experts, the term women's empowerment, particularly within the coach community, is a catchphrase for a lot of different things. And one of the things that I always have an issue with when women coaches in particular say that they work within the women's empowerment space is that it's not really clear what they are empowering women to do. And so this is an example of someone who is using the term women's empowerment, and she's very, very clear on how it is she wants to be able to empower women and also girls throughout the African diaspora, and the tools and strategies that she's using to actually be able to empower them through food and nutrition and changing of health. So that's one key thing that I want you to think about as you listen to Tambra's interview. The second is that she's creating an international movement. And through creating an international movement, it involves international collaboration. And through international collaboration, it can get a little bit tricky, particularly for where Tambra's going. She's going to northern Nigeria. And so, at least for a good portion of her trip, as she's talking about the book as well as other projects that she's doing within the organization. And so I really want people to start to think about how it is that they can collaborate with people all over the world, particularly in places like various countries in Africa where we don't necessarily think of as the first place to go, as a place to be able to go where we can find partners. There's through the use of social media and technology, it's made it so much easier for us to be able to collaborate with people in different countries. People are always coming to the United States and are wanting to collaborate with us. But for a lot of Americans, I don't think that we think about collaborating with people in other countries and really looking at them as partners and really expanding our message to other places outside of the United States, if it fits what it is that you would like to be able to do. So that's another thing that I want to bring your attention to while you're listening to this interview. So one is the whole piece about women's empowerment. What are you empowering women to do? And for Tambra, she is empowering women and girls within the food and nutrition space to become leaders within a food and nutrition space. And also to think about how it is that you can collaborate with people in other countries, to be able to expand your message beyond your own backyard, and to really take advantage of how social media and technology in general is really helping us to be able to expand our horizons so that we can learn more about each other. Okay, so those are two important themes that I want you to think about as you listen to the interview. So without further ado, I want to give you my Inspirational Spotlight interview with Miss Tambra Raye. Hello and welcome to the Digital Well Publisher podcast, where we interview entrepreneurs and business experts to find out all the tools and strategies that they are using to be able to grow their expert business. And today I am happy to have Miss Tambra Raye with me here on the podcast today. She is the founder of Wanda, that's WANDA, and that stands for Women Advancing Nutrition, Dietetics, and Agriculture. And she's here to share her story on how she's been creating a really interesting organization where she uses storytelling through food and heritage as a way to improve diet and nutrition. So, Tambra, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Helena, for having me on. I'm looking forward to our conversation today and just sharing my story and motivating those who are listening why it's important to have our passion and purpose to drive our profession.
Awesome. Thank you, Tambra. I was like, so Tambra, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Well, right now I'm based in Washington, D.C., but I was born and raised in Oklahoma. And that really, in many ways, I feel like an immigrant. There are two Americas, and I grew up in one. And the more I've traveled, the more I realize how connected to those who are in other under-resourced communities or just marginalized communities have been, or very rural communities, and why that matters in driving, where I am today makes a big difference. Before founding Wanda, I was and still am the founder of Native Soul Kitchen, focused around providing community nutrition education, especially as it relates to global South cuisine with African immigrant population, African American mainly, and also doing lectures abroad on the continent, and just promoting our African heritage foods are important for our health. And so that really kind of was one of the components that led into creating Wanda, of realizing this need to have more people, more women, more girls to see themselves as leaders to drive this movement, that I alone am not enough, that it really takes an army of committed leaders who represent our community to look out for one another. So for me, as a kid, I always wanted to have a children's book, and so it kind of was one of those things where at the right time, the right place, and being surrounded by so many other cookbook writers and meeting people who've written books, I kind of thought, well, where am I in all of this space? And I think, when you make that list of what you want to accomplish throughout your life, that was definitely one thing I wanted to check off, and something that was meaningful, that made a difference for others. And that was, I have children. So what is something that I could give to my children that would encourage, motivate them? And so they became some of the biggest champions of Wanda. When I first brought home this little South African doll, and they called her Little Wanda, and they wanted to learn, well, how can we be a part of this? And so Ruby, my daughter, who's been a real cheerleader for Wanda, and who also played a role in this because of just her diet. She just wasn't really interested in eating healthy food, and I wanted something that motivated her to want to do that. And so I thought about, in the sea of cartoons we have Dr. McStuffins promoting medicine, we have Dora the Explorer showing kids around the world about, her culture. I'm like, well, what about ours in my field in nutrition? Who's doing that? And so that's where I wanted to have Little Wanda to fill in that gap that was desperately needed of how do we see these little girls to see themselves as future freedom fighters on the front line, and a character that was around their age that can motivate them and do it in a fun way, and do it in a way that addresses some of the issues that we see right now. I hear conversations that Africans and African Americans don't get along, and how can this character be this glue to connect? And then people who say, well, I don't know the health benefits of African foods, or don't see the value in their own foods, and so they give way to Western foods. And so how can Wanda show them that they are good for you? They've always been. And then just the whole, coming back home to the community, and women who are farmers and making a difference. So there's so many different levels to why this has come about. And the heart of it all is me just connecting to my desire to learn what my African roots were, and learning of, the story of my ancestors who were brought here, who were female, who worked on the land by force and then in the kitchen, and how, they had no ability to have a sense of independence, control of their lives, their destiny, their freedom, and how do Wanda and Little Wanda, that we take back that story, we take back our future, and we lead it on our own terms. So in one little character, it's a lot of pressure on Little Wanda, and that's why, she has to have a band of big Wandas around her to support her and champion on. But I knew it had to be something tangible, and it couldn't be some dissertation essay that no one will read, or some policy that no one will implement and fund it properly. But, just how do we reach directly to the children, directly to the families, through this character, and hopefully people will believe in her and her possibility.
Okay, so now you've created Wanda, the organization. Is this a nonprofit organization?
Yeah, we've registered in Abuja, Nigeria, and we're going through the process of finishing that up here in the States as well, to where we have, the straddling both sides of the Atlantic to bridge this gap, is the intention behind it. But yeah, it's an organization with a focus of developing the next generation of women and girls of African descent as leaders, from farm to fork, covering agriculture, nutrition, dietetics, which has become important on the agenda for African Development Bank, United Nations, World Bank, and so many other groups, of realizing, if you don't have food, what do you have? And women are the key drivers in all of this.
Okay, and you said something about you started all of this through the process of discovering your own heritage, right?
Yes.
How did that happen for you?
That happened, in 2010 when yeah, it's like I'm packaging a lot of baggage, but I would say that when my father passed, in 2007, I definitely went through a grieving process. We loved food. We loved our family history. And unfortunately, I had a very short term on this earth to know him. And so in my way of healing and dealing with that grief, I found myself, trying to heal and trying to honor through those two means. So that what led to starting Native Soul Kitchen, and then ultimately doing an African ancestry DNA test to connect and learn of my heritage, of Fulani heritage descent in Nigeria. And so part of why this first book focuses on northern Nigeria is because of that reason. And so I share the story with Michael Twitty, a colleague who's writing Cooking Gene, which will be out this year.
Yeah,
but
Michael Twitty
that
is a
was
genius.
Yeah.
I love
So
him.
so for me, it was kind of like, well, what's that version for kids that's out there to start connecting early to this importance of food and roots. And so that's where I kind of just thought about my life, my children, and the own little girl within me who needed to be healed.
That's wonderful. And so now you've got this organization, and you have this book that are you in the process of writing it, or are you done writing it?
Yeah, I've gone through the writing review process with the committee. I've put together a band of reviewers who represent the community in northern Nigeria, who represent children book specialists, as well as nutrition and physicians. And so now the illustrator is winding down at 99% done. And through the campaign we have, raising funds, raising awareness of the project, we look forward to, having it ready to be sent out by this summer. The ebook definitely will be ready, and then next is doing the self-publishing process of it all. But it's a beautifully illustrated book by a firm in Lagos, Jenny Gaines, who it's been a pleasure to work directly and, again, straddles both sides of the Atlantic. I think all the vendors, to me, it was very important to have them, a part of this story, a part of the journey, in supporting, Black businesses, African businesses. And so I'm very proud of all the people who have been working behind the scenes, representing different African countries to make this happen.
Now, how have you been able to even start to make some of these connections between people who were, doing the book reviews and the illustrators and all those different things? How were you able to go through that process of making the connections to get the book done?
Yeah, because literally I had no book, 6 months ago. And so so when I made a decision to first book a flight to Nigeria, that's when the clock started ticking for me to say, hey, I got to get Wanda off the ground. I mean, if I were to be completely honest, I'm one of those people who can procrastinate, have a great idea, may not move on it. And so for me, I needed to put something that will push and motivate me. So put my money where my mouth is. And then I just started, sitting down last fall with friends when I traveled to South Africa, when I came back, just sharing, this is, an idea I have. What do you think about it? And it's like, oh, I think I have someone you might want to know. And so that's how it goes. And then you just follow the rabbit trail.
Right.
and it just led up until this moment. So when you're walking in your steps that God has ordained for you, the doors open, and that's what I know to be true. Even for those who've deterred me of northern Nigeria, this is a part of the soul completion process. So I cannot, in honor of my ancestors, this is what I'll do. Whatever happens there will be, and thanks be to God to bless my journey.
And it's a journey that I wish that more Black people in the United States would be more interested in taking, whether it's to Nigeria or elsewhere on the continent of Africa, because there's just so much to learn and see and things to do and people to meet, and the few years that I've spent in West Africa has really just been some of the biggest lessons for my life and how it is that I choose to live now.
Definitely.
Yeah. So just learning how to connect, how to make those connections, particularly as a professional. I applaud you on being able to do that, to be able to bring your creative vision to life, so that you can create this really big and important project, which I admire that ability to be able to do that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, there's a lot of intentionality behind this. I can thank, my time of working with minority business development in Commerce Department, my work also with NAACP, and then just women's policy with the mayor. I think finding myself that, you push policies is another thing, to implement the program is another thing, to walk it in your personal, professional life. And so I just really wanted to embody, everything that's led up until this moment of all these strings of pearls of experiences, and how do I choose to wear that and showcase that experience. And so this project is really a culmination of work over time that God really has laid out for me. So it's been a beautiful thing to reflect and see that. It was difficult in the moment of it all, but now I can see how and why things happened the way they did.
So you're about to take another trip to northern Nigeria.
Yeah.
And are you able to talk a little bit about what you expect to accomplish while you're there?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a moving targets a bit, but I think up until the literally last minute it will come to be, just like how South Africa winded up literally at the last minute it came to be. But the highlights that I'm looking to accomplish, we have meetings set up with government officials looking at how do we address child malnutrition in northern Nigeria, which is a big challenge right now for the people of Nigeria. There's almost 2 Nigerias that need to be unified, and we hope through women coming together, advocating together on this topic, that can be a glue, an adhesive for us, and a healing elixir for us. The other component is going to the IDP sites, which is the camps of those who've been displaced due to the unfortunate events with Boko Haram in northern Nigeria. There's a number of camps from Abuja to Gombe and many other places that have just loads of families in need. And so there's a need to train women, train the staff around nutrition, around what donations are acceptable, to provide proper nutrition for children from 0 to 5 years old, which is a critical time of development, cognitively, physically, every component. And then for us also, we have set to do training with teachers and faculty in Yola around Wanda, and how, because that really was kind of like the initial push to get the book out, is learning about the children who are having to decide between Boko Haram and the programs there. And when organizations pull out, financial institutions pull out, you leave a community, in many ways what I experience here with Anacostia, vulnerable and open for um, uh, any kind of activity that's not in the best interest of the people to happen. And so being able to try to support and provide a way of developing curriculum that's sector specific around ag and nutrition. There's an interest around entrepreneurship. And so how do we help make these connections around providing that kind of training, and it being somewhat educational, entertaining, I think is really important. So at the heart of it, a kid is a kid and wants to have fun. And so I think taking my experience, in nutrition education, child nutrition, all of these come together with the business development. They all really work together. So I'm looking forward to how those conversations play out, what the feedback will be. And also, She Leads Africa. I've been invited to speak on women opportunities in agriculture in their She Hive Abuja boot camp, which trains 150 young women who set out to be entrepreneurs or who already are, but looking to sharpen their skills. And so that will be happening. And last but not least, also meet the farmer that we are highlighting in the first Wanda book, Miss Garpa of Wafan. It's a female farmers network in northern Nigeria that's doing phenomenal work and opening schools and just making a real impact in the community. And it's just a real testament of what a Wanda woman is. And I'm looking forward to having that opportunity. And then going off to the teaching hospitals and giving nutrition lectures. I mean, I think every few days I'm in a different city doing some kind of outreach with my team. And I'm just, it's not a vacation by any means. And then there will be a welcoming ceremony back into the Fulani community in northern Nigeria, which I think will just be a hallmark to the whole experience for me. So it's going to be an emotional roller coaster, physical one. I'm sure I'll be shedding some pounds from all the movement. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, actually, from the sedentary work, trying to get this book done. So it's going to be a lot. I'm looking forward. It's not going to be the end, but just the beginning. So it's very exciting.
That is exciting. And I love the Fulani people. Whenever I saw a group of Fulanis, wherever I was in West Africa, they would always come and speak to me in Hausa, because they thought that I was one of them. And so I don't know, I must have some sort of a connection. So I have to do what you did and do the African ancestry tests to see if I am indeed connected, because it never failed. Every time any one of them that would see me, they just assumed that I had gone to the United States and lived there. But yeah, right. they really thought they couldn't understand why I didn't understand Hausa.
Right. Yeah, I still have to improve. We have a draft of the book in Hausa now. And so, yeah, it was just debating, should it be in Fulani or Hausa? It was like Hausa because that's what people are speaking mainly in the north. So that's been an interesting process. But there's a good sized Hausa Fulani community here. And it's been a pleasure to know them, see them as brothers and sisters, to work with them and getting the support of the diaspora
in DC, you mean?
Group. Yes, in DC. Yeah. It's been, very. I thought it was important to have the support of the Nigerian diaspora groups for this project, to help share, to help just feel that they're a part of it. And so in reaching out to the embassy of Nigeria and letting them know what we're doing, all of this is, it's been important to see that everyone is a part of this journey. It's not just my story.
Mm-hmm. And so how long is your trip going to be in total?
About 21 days. It was to be longer, but, there's always more flights to go back. But at least setting, checking in, getting there, just making the first initial connections and seeing what can transpire and and come back to do more, since Wanda will have a has an office, has registration there, so we definitely will be looking forward to coming back home.
And so, do you have any plans once you do return stateside? Do you have any plans to do anything with the book once you return back here to the United States?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, this trip is only the catalyst, not the end. And so that's already, is in the works of working with a publicist about what we need to do in terms of just getting it out to as many people as possible. And also doing programs. I mean, right now we have in the works a boot camp for women, and also men can attend with our partners around entrepreneurship activities from farm to fork, with Africa as a focus. And so we look to have that set in June will happen, and people will be able to have opportunity to learn more about it. We'll have it posted on the Wanda website at iamwanda.org. And also in our Facebook and our Twitter is iamwanda.org as well. But developing not only girl programs, the products, and also women empowerment programs around leadership development, entrepreneurial skill development, and giving value to the voice of women. And by having this platform is most important, because part of the other component, in the States, we have very few African Americans in the field of nutrition dietetics. The Academy of Nutrition Dietetics says that we have 2.7%. That's roughly 3,600 African Americans, and that's lumped Caribbean, African all together in the same pot. But, when we look at the state of obesity, diabetes, the numbers are through the roof. Like, you have an imbalance of supply and demand. And so that was, the statistics also support why Wanda matters, and why we have to plant the seeds. And nutrition alone is not enough. It has to make this connection to the land, to the network that's needed. And for those who are who are from the continent, they really feel like there's a connection of some kind of community here. And so sometimes, even if you go through the field, you may drop out. Just the stories like we hear with medicine, you go through all that work, have all those loans, and you then drop out because you just don't see the opportunity. So I think that's the other driver, is not only recruitment of encouraging more people to go in the field, but also the retention of those who are in the field. How do you feel that you can start creating a new niche for yourself, that you don't have to make this choice of only focus on domestic nutrition or only on international nutrition, that you can do both. And you can cross-cut sectors. You don't have to be stuck in a box. And I think that's very liberating for people to believe, like, wow, there's a possibility. And I just happen to set up the canvas, but we all help paint the final picture together. And so that's where I see Wanda. It's about giving hope.
Awesome. Now we're in our last about 3 minutes, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to be able to tell people where they can connect with you and how they can continue to support Wanda.
Yeah, right now we have an active campaign going on at Indiegogo campaign site. You can go to bit.ly/Where's Wanda, so bit.ly/Where's Wanda, and that will direct you to Indiegogo, or you can Google. But the campaign right now is a little bit more than 50%. We really need more supporters to reach our goal, which is about 5,497. So we're almost at the 3,000 mark. We hope that people will enjoy the perks we have to offer. It's not just a donation. Share it to your friends. Get a perk in the process. and also just follow and like us on Twitter and interact. And if you're interested in being a part of Wanda, you believe you could be a partner in some way, either providing space, encouraging us to learn about what resources are out there to help this mission of women and girls in ag and nutrition. If you believe in this cause, that it's desperately needed, that we should own our narrative again, I think, Wanda is the place for you. It is the place for you. And I just think that the story is not going to end with just the first edition. We look to hop to different countries. I've heard, people who want us to come to Malawi, to Kenya, but there's always going to be this connection to the diaspora, and the diaspora is everything outside of Africa, whether you're in Europe, whether you're in the United States or the Caribbean. I think that's really important to drive home, that it's not just focused solely on the continent. The continent is the heart because it's the home of all of us, but also we're connecting to those beyond the continent as well. So through the book, it's very engaging. We want people to share their Wanda story, and you can email us at hello@iamwanda.org. And again, you can go to the website www.iamwanda.org, IAMWANDA.org. And again, we're on Facebook and we're on Twitter. So just follow us and stay connected.
Excellent. And so that I just wanted to make sure we got the address for where they can go to donate. It was bit.ly/Where's Wanda. Is that correct? So that's WHERESWANDA?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Well, Tambra, thank you so much. This has just been an excellent story. I know this is going to inspire so many people to move forward with not just their books, but their ideas and dreams that they have for their businesses and creating their nonprofit organizations and working on whatever projects it is that they want to be able to create in their lives. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Well, thanks for hanging out with me today on my Inspirational Spotlight Interview with Miss Tambra Raye. If you'd like to get more information about today's podcast, to get special notes, and to find out where you can actually support the Wanda organization, you can go to digitalwellpublisher.com. And if you are also interested in learning more about our special podcast episodes, you can join the 7-day author platform challenge. And this is a 7-day challenge specifically for people who are authors or those who are interested in becoming authors and learning how to grow your online platform so that you can grow your following, so that by the time your book becomes available, you will have a slew of fans who are going to be so excited about your book that selling it is really just going to be a breeze. So you can get access to that at bit.ly/7day DAY author challenge. Again, that's bit.ly/7day author challenge. You'll find all of that and more in the notes for today's episode. My name is Helana Black from digitalwellpublisher.com. Have a great day.